Welcome, everyone. Today, my guest is Brena Nath, our Director of HW Plus and Events, to talk about the speakers, the networking, and even more important, the encouraging, inspirational, practical, and motivational vibe we're building for our events this year, one of which is just around the corner. First, here's a word from our sponsor. This is Sarah Wheeler, Editor-in-Chief at HW Media, talking with Christina Bennett, Senior Vice President of UWM Sales, about a career in the wholesale channel. Christina, is there a particular career path or skill set you commonly see with those looking to become independent mortgage brokers?
Hi, Sarah. Honestly, typically what we're seeing is retail loan officers moving over from wholesale, but really anyone can come over into the wholesale channel. You don't have to have a lot of experience. There's a lot of support for anyone coming over. We're seeing a lot of college grads, military veterans, also retired government workers. Honestly, it's just a great place for many people to be.
Thanks, Christina. And listeners, you can go to beamortgagebroker.com to get more information. Brena, welcome to the podcast.
I'm excited to be back. It's always an honor to get to do an interview with you, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, you know, you and I are the OG podcasters here at HousingWire, and I always love talking to you. And I really wanted to dive in today on events. So you coordinate our events, and I've been to a ton of events already this year. And there's some different vibe this year. And I think that's good. Like, it's a very practical vibe. The things that people like about events that I've gone to is when they come away with something, that they didn't know before. Either they're hearing from experts that they didn't know, or it's super actionable. And we've really taken that to heart in how we're doing our events. So we have one that's coming up, in like 2 weeks, a week and a half. That's Gathering of Eagles. And that's our real estate focused event. It's actually been going on for like 30 decades is all I know, like a couple decades. And it's really for top brokers. In the past, you had to sort of be invited, right? So it was just like for the top brokers and brokerage leaders. Now you don't have to be invited. We're inviting everyone to come right now, but it's still an amazing time of community and also M&A and all that. But I should ask you are the one doing it. Tell me some highlights about Gathering of Eagles.
So Gathering of Eagles is built for, and like the wording that we use for everyone to use. And that is the top question I get, like not only what is this event, or is this event for me? We're very aware that everyone in the industry right now is having to be strategically minded. So you're looking at the events this year and trying to figure out if I'm going to go, which one should I go to? And if I'm there, how can I maximize my time and make sure I'm walking away with good leads and insights and actual tips? And the wording that we use to go back for Gathering of Eagles is it brings together the nation's most elite brokerage, association, and team leaders, C-suite leaders, and top producing agents to grow, network, and set the pace for what's next in our industry. As Sarah just said, it's been around for years. I think that's something that's been so special about this event is there's a rich history and people coming together. I think right now, the events that I'm crafting and the events that we're trying to build here, one thing I often say is you want to be almost like, hands open. How can I help you? And that sentiment has long been around for Gathering of Eagles. It's people who have come together in a room and say, we together want to work cohesively and collaboratively to move the industry forward. Maybe just right in line with HousingWire's tagline, move markets forward. Perfect synergy right there. But looking at the agenda, something that I think is special and I've been trying to emphasize is it's a nice energy event, but not so high energy that we are not crafting moments for you to be intentional and rest as well. So these are at resort locations. We like to frame it as you can in the morning get great content and in the afternoon have a glass of wine. I've probably posted a handful of places now that you will find me in the evenings with a glass of wine in my hand watching the Texas sunset, because we do not get those beautiful sunsets here in Colorado. So something I'm super looking forward to, but I would definitely recommend people going online to the agenda to start. So your question kind of asked, what am I looking forward to and what do people really need to know? I'll just list off a handful of these speakers. I'd highly recommend people going to events.com, Real Trend events. So basically you can go to the realtrends.com website, navigate to events, go to our registration, agenda, hotel page, the event site from there, and you'll get our list of speakers. And that is what I would first, start off with. You have people like Nick Bailey. He's the president and CEO of Remax. You have Stephanie Anton. She's the president of Corcoran Affiliates. Was able to meet with her last year. Great knowledge from her. You have people like Peter Luft. He's the vice president of franchise sales and mergers and acquisitions at Remax. Rick Davison, the CEO of Carn Real Estate Holdings. Jessica Edgerton. She's the EVP of operations and corporate counsel at Lending RE. I'm going to keep going because these are good names. Ashley Bowers, president of HomeSmart International. Natalie Hamrick, EVP of the Americas, Christie's International Real Estate. Renee Mueller, co-founder of Elite Real Estate Systems Holding. And then people like David Lycan, he's the founder, president, and chief transformational officer at Transformational Mortgage Solutions. That is just a sliver of the people who are coming to speak. And why I went long there is that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people. I heard, was watching an Instagram post yesterday, and the guy was talking about, he was a rising star in real estate, and how did he maximize his events, and what did he really think made the difference? And he was saying that after the event, he'd look at a conference agenda, he'd see who the speakers were, and afterwards, when the panelists are on the stage and they kind of come forward to just stand there and mingle with the crowd, he made sure that he was right there in line with those people, and those are the people he thought was worth interacting with. He got their numbers, he exchanged business card, he made sure that his face was familiar to them, and from there he just kept building and building this list of names that he knew that he had connections and relationships with, and now he grew into one of the top agents over at EXP and is doing great things with this business, all with that foundation if that's how he got his start. And so I think it's tips like that we might say a lot, but are so important. So that's why I kind of went down into the speaker list, because that's what I'd highly recommend other people to do as well. From there are the networking sessions, but I'll let Sarah, since I talked a lot, kind of jump back in.
No. Listen, I am used to podcast guests going long. Okay. We'll just do a shout out to Logan Motoshami, who a couple weeks ago, we were doing one, and he was talking, and I was able to get up and go do something, come back. I had to plug in, and he kept talking. So listen, you are not going long at all. And I just think that it's a really great point. I mean, it starts with, what is the theme? Like, what are the topics we're going to do? And then who are the very best people we can get for that? And we really feel like that is key to how these events are going to go. And then networking, as he said, is coming up. I did want to say, we're talking right now about a real estate event. After this, we'll talk about our mortgage event, which is HousingWire Annual. So talk about the networking, because I think Gathering of Eagles, as much as we think about the content, it is traditionally a place where M&A gets done, where connections get met, where other, like businesses are formed. It is a pretty stellar event when it comes to who you're going to meet and what those opportunities might be. So tell us about the networking.
I might start off by saying that this event is located in Austin, Texas, at the Omni Barton Creek. Going back to the sunset comment I had, beautiful sunsets over the Rosing Hills. And I emphasize this because there's a huge, commerce from the people who are already based in Austin to the people coming in. We are aware, as Sarah mentioned, that, sometimes they might not bring it in front of us. We are, a media company, but we try to create a space for transactions, a space for you to meet other people and have those, whether it's not right now. I look back to the fact that the Gathering of Eagles has been around for years. Maybe there's someone you met, and I know, who met 5 years ago, just a soft intro or just chat at the event. Now in a market like 2023, conversations are starting to come up about, hey, do you want to merge? Can acquisitions, can we buy you? And those conversations are being had in the background, and not even just that level of fully buying, acquiring, but also talent is a big conversation right now. It is known top talent in whether real estate or mortgage have choices. They have the opportunity to go different places. So what are you doing as the leader to show your talent? One, put them in a room with other big names, to woo them over and bring them to this nice event and get to spend quality time throughout, going to the wine tastings, going to the networking parties, but having that interaction is really big right now. So between the two of those, I think there's plenty of opportunities, to Sarah's point, to create some important changes or shifts that could possibly happen when you're looking at your business plans for 2024. And all of those can happen around, we have a wine tasting. It's a California versus Texas competition. How well can you do your wine tasting? We have a charity golf tournament. I don't golf, but I'm excited because this year is the first year that we have an installment of pickleball. I'm going to share a fun story around the background there. McKenna, who is our event specialist, when I came back from maternity leave, just mentioned lightly how she pitched the idea of a pickleball tournament. And I just clung to that because I'm a firm believer, and I think a lot of people in this industry can resonate. And I'm going to say that with confidence because I posted on LinkedIn and got great interaction on my post, that pickleball has really grown into this next great place to build connections, to get a good workout. A lot of people play pickleball, and there's a good balance there. If you don't golf, you can play pickleball. And we were able to take that excitement and energy from our audience and actually plug it into the event and have a pickleball tournament. And why I'm excited about that is because as the events director, when I'm crafting these events, I'm trying to go through the moments and figure out what are the touch points that we're going to have with our audience, with our community, and in an area that allows you to not always have to be sold to. That's not what we want to create here. We don't want to create opportunities for just the M&A transactions where I'm going to go there and people are going to try to buy me, or I have to be on for vendors. That's not what we're trying to craft. We're actually trying to craft an industry where you can share knowledge. You can share, maybe this is just what I can help you when it comes to technology, or other agents or brokers or executives in the space. And something like pickleball lets you be a pickleball expert instead. And those are something that we value, that you can wear a different hat, come be competitive. I think there's probably, I would guess, a lot of competitive people in this industry. I'm a really good cheer you on squad on the side. I will not be participating in pickleball. That's maybe a goal for 2024. But those opportunities, what I'm excited about.
I think it's a really good point because when you said, you have your opportunity to have a glass of wine, we know in this industry, there are people who love a glass of wine in that sort of setting. We also know these are grinders too. And people who are it might be hard for them to sit down, So we have the golf, which I love. And a lot of people, that's one of their favorite events. I like pickleball because it's very accessible. If you're not a golf player, listen, even if you have never played before, come on, let's see it. Let's do it. And there'll be some of us up there as well. And I just think that the whole point for us is connections. So that leads me to my next one, which I really wanted to talk about HousingWire Annual. That is not until October, but that is something that we started doing a couple of years ago, really building off of our Engage conferences before COVID. And Engage was the perfect name because that's the way we designed them. And HousingWire Annual has continued that feeling of conferences, but really has evolved into something else. So tell us when and where HousingWire Annual is, who should come, who are our main speakers. Give us the whole 411 on that.
I'm very excited that this year we're going to Austin back to back. For anyone who knows the Austin Metroplex, we are on basically either side of it. So the Omni Barton Creek is on the east side of the city, and the Hyatt Lost Pines is on the west side of the city. I am going to, before I go too deep into it, since it's relevant to what we're just talking about soft touches and moments. The third area that between pickleball and golf that I love is I do love a good yoga rest session. So that is on the docket. If anyone wants to partner with me to bring yoga to HousingWire Annual 2023, that's going to be my new point that I'm trying to drive forward. We were able to do with pickleball. Let's get yoga into the agenda. Though if yoga is not your thing, I think there's some fun things that you can partner with us on, between archery is one of those. But yoga, I think, is such a great way to also just to mix in some relaxation into the busy conference agenda. And Sarah has done goat yoga, so it's not that, but maybe it could blend.
Goat yoga was a little bit messy for a professional event, is what we thought. So, but yes, otherwise yoga. So who are some of our big speakers?
So we are in the, I've been excited. A big focus of mine since coming back has been, what do I want this, and this event to look like? And how do we know that there's, a handful of events out there in the industry? What are we trying to craft here? And I'm really trying to craft a space for our HW Plus members, who are often, the rising stars and up of our industry. So going back to that question with Gathering of Equals, who are the people that should go here? If you are trying to grow in your business, if you want to be a leader, you didn't, like many of us, think you're going to get into the mortgage industry, but you're here now and you're finding a passion for it. That person and up are the people that we're trying to bring together into one room to learn, whether it's from the housing data to how do JV partnerships and the leaders work together, to how does an operation and change management happen within a company, and making sure from top down communication is happening to encourage everyone to use the technology, to data in your marketing. How are you deploying data to be agile this year? To even to duos. That's something I've been very fascinated with this year is, this industry, and I keep talking about it, I think something I found very special is while someone might be at your competition now, at one point in time, they're probably your coworker and your peer. And so, yes, they are, in theory, you guys compete against each other for business, but we've all, this is a very up and down market. We've had a lot of shifts. And so you probably have friends and peers throughout the industry working at different levels. And so I wanted to capture that great dynamic that this industry has onto a stage. And I think you can feed off that energy. So looking at kind of the list, a lot of these people are still coming into work. So I've had a handful of phone calls and brainstorming sessions that have got me really excited about what is possible. So I'll just name the handful here and then just stay tuned to HousingWire.com as we continue to announce names and release names. One of the biggest people is Karen Mayfield. She's over at Guaranteed Rate. She's at Guaranteed Rate Affinity, and then she's chatting with Robert Burns, who's at Coldwell Banker Bain. The two of them kind of, Guaranteed Rate Affinity is the partnership between Anywhere Brands and then Guaranteed Rate, and it's them working alongside the real estate industry. So that is a duo that's going to be on stage. We have, the strategy and operations tactics from the top of this handful of amazing women who are going to be chatting about how they help with change management. On that panel, we have Cindy Keys. She's the Chief Strategy Officer at NFM Lending. Jennifer Hedgepeth. She's the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at DHI Mortgage. They are, the mortgage arm of D.R. Horton. You have Sarah Gonzalez. She's the President and Chief Operating Officer at Panorama Mortgage Group. And the moderator of that one is Terry Davis. What stands out about her is anyone who knows Terry Davis right now, she's a founding partner and executive advisor at ALE Advisors. What's unique about her is she is one who I worked together with her on this panel and said, these are the women that uniquely are, this is what they can bring to the table when it comes to the conversations that they're having, how they're bringing out change, how they've led in their career, how they're helping grow their company. And this is what each of them kind of can create a whole discussion around. And so she's able to touch with each one or, touch point with each one on what our audience needs to know. And I think that's really special when we introduce an external moderator, they're helping ask the questions that I know our audience is interested in, which we're always trying to do too. But I think it creates this extra twist and fun spin on some of these panels that we have. Outside of that, I'm also in good talks with Jay Promisco. He is over at Sierra Pacific Mortgage for a panel. Our Women of Influence session has Susie Lindblom, who's over at Arc Home Loans, Chrissy Brown at Atlanta Bay Mortgage, been chatting with Guild Mortgage. So a lot of great lenders is the theme that I'm trying to capitalize on there. Sorry if I butchered any of those names, but
no, it's all good. I love that list of names. I think people can see like where we're going with that. And I wanted to just jump in and say, when you said duos, one of the things we're really looking at format wise this year is we do have panels for sure. Sometimes you need a panel and you need 3 or 4 people up there who have different ideas, get them together. We also are doing more like one person standing up there for 15 minutes. And then these duos that you're talking about, which I think is, we've changed that because we are listening to our audience and going, what is it that people really want? What format do they like? We know that a lot of people, they're used to like the social media format of like, I'm listening to one person, I'm doing a video of these 2 people. So we're really trying to tweak our format too, to make it something that people exactly want to do.
I might be biased, but my analogy here is Sarah and I have always kind of like worked together in a great dynamic for our Women of Influence Forum. I think her and I have enjoyed being co-host on a lot of things together. And that same, energy between us, I'm trying to find partners like that in the industry. Who are the 2 sides that are working together that are helping move markets forward. I know I keep going back to that tagline, and maybe, I biasly said me and Sarah. Another great example that I would highlight, a section that I'm most excited for, is Sarah and Logan, who also do a great job on their podcast episodes. They'll be doing a live podcast recording at the, to wrap up HousingWire Annual, calling it Logan Unplugged. Excited to have Sarah, Logan up on stage to do a live recording, and then also bring some audience members on stage to help add this kind of roundtable discussion to that conversation. Maybe going back to Sarah, we'll have to work with Logan. We'll have this good group discussion on stage from everyone. So whether you see it live, but that will also be something people can look forward to who are podcast listeners after the fact.
I love that. Logan Unplugged, we've never done that. So it's going to be fun to be up there. And I think the energy of the room is going to be fun. And I just want to say, I love that Logan has a lot to say, because that's why I have him on. So I'm not the economic expert, so I'm really glad about that. But I think it'll be good, because what we see is that people really respond especially with the uncertainty, whether it's rates or inventory or whatever. Economic news right now is super important. And someone who can kind of break it down we've found very valuable. And so we want it to be where people can, send in questions ahead of time. And that's what we'll talk about, or ask questions while we're doing it live. Never done a live podcast before in front of people. So it'll be fun. Come and help me do this.
Yeah. And there's some talks of maybe possibly doing this with mimosas in the background. So it's really going to be a fun environment and a fun crowd there with you all.
I cannot wait. We have so much that we're going to be doing there. Now, is there a pickleball equivalent for HousingWire Annual yet?
There is a pickleball equivalent. So something I've tried to keep top of mind as I'm also planning this event and our events is I want touch points, as you and I already talked about, for everybody. And I think what I love about pickleball, my goal, so October's far away. And for anyone who doesn't know, I'm in a season of being a new mom. And my vision for pickleball, it's a great place for these summer nights, summers after work, to bring my daughter, because it's outside. It's good for her to get fresh air, and me to practice my pickleball training with some friends. So, if you're like me, new mom, trying to figure out what is your networking event at these conferences, if it's not yoga, then I think pickleball. And if it's not pickleball, we have some other events between just good reception parties where we try to have, different spots between food and drinks and your peers around, to stuff like the wine tasting or yoga.
I love it. Yes. We love to have people come. Last year, I've been planning events since we started doing them again. When was it? I don't even remember. The Engage events. It's been 5 or 6 years, right? Last year's HousingWire Annual, people still talk about it. I am not even kidding you. Like, I see people, they're like, "Oh my God, are you guys going to do that again this year?" Because you and the other people did such a great job. And it's such a fun place to get together. There's lots of serious stuff. There's lots of fun stuff. But it's one of those things you don't want to miss. Like, that's what I heard from last year, is like people who didn't go and then saw everything we did and saw kind of what happened. They were like, dang, I wish I had gone, that FOMO. And so, hey, don't let that be you this year. You come, get to meet us, one of the things that we heard on the welcome calls that we did, the welcome committee. We have a welcome committee of people in the industry that we tap and go, hey, what do you want to hear at this conference? And what do you want to bring to this conference? And they talked about tech. And so, although, there are some events where you feel like, oh, it's so tech heavy, but tech is a really important thing right now. And what they told us is they wanted to hear more about what tech works for who, like, what tech should I be doing right now? They wanted to hear from lenders and other people in the industry, what tech worked for them. And so we've really set up some of our talks, our sessions, to focus on that, because people are like, this is what I want. And we're like, great. And that's really what we took all of our topics from, were those, feedback that we got from people in the industry.
I'm going to turn, I know you are the interviewer, but Sarah, I also love a good question back. I mean, knowing everything you just said, to your point of like last year, the big takeaways, what our welcome committee is saying, what do you think was the most impactful moment for you last year at HousingWire Annual, and between all of the agenda sessions, they're like, this is what we are recreating at HousingWire Annual 23. Because you are also great. I have you, Sarah, is, as much as for those who love her on this podcast, she's also moderating a handful of discussions at HousingWire Annual 2023. So for the people who, it's either, this single person CEO playbook style or these amazing fireside chats. Sarah led a great chat last year with Marianne McGarry over at Guild Mortgage, who is now retired. That conversation, Sarah, for anyone who wasn't able to be in that room, was talk about someone who really let us see the inside workings of how she became a leader and how she's grown in her career, and so much vulnerability. And that conversation, that's a great example of the conversations that Sarah is going to continue to have. And I hope that wasn't your answer and I just stole it from you. But what would you, for people to see?
Yeah, thanks for those kind words. I think that what that fireside chat with Marianne McGarry and even with Sandra Thompson, who, it's got to be pretty scripted. She's not going to come in. I think the way that we set it up, it's a smaller crowd. You're not going to have 3,000 people in the room. It's not this giant ballroom. It really does, I think, facilitate people being real about what's going on. And so I think the Women of Influence sessions we had, so Women of Influence are award winners that we pick every year, but it's also a program that's ongoing where we recognize people and give them voices. And those sessions, they really impacted me personally. And then I've heard throughout the year from so many people, because what happened is we had people who were just really generous with being real about what was going on in their business, what was going on in their personal life, how those two went together, how they're navigating this really tough market. And I feel like that's the spirit we want to bring forward again, where it's like, hey, we're getting together because we're all in this together. Like you said, these might be your competitors today. They might be your employers tomorrow. They might be your employees tomorrow. And we know this is a small industry in some ways. And I think that whole, we're coming together and hearing from people who are actually doing really well in this market. And so other people can take from that, whether that's, they've gotten into different products, different kinds of borrowers, they're using different kinds of tech, they're doing something completely different, they're expanding, whatever it is. That's really our focus, is not like, oh, let's get together and talk about how terrible it is. Like, let's get together and talk to people who are killing it and get that inspiration, and also, know that these are real people. So that's a really long answer, but I think it was the spirit of that we are really trying to recreate this year with who we're having on and the format we're doing. And I'm confident we will do that again.
That's one of the pieces of feedback I've got, and for anyone who's listening, one of the ways I try to spend my time is interacting with you, our listeners and with our HA Plus members and getting audience feedback. And so that's what a lot of these things are built on. And one feedback I got is there's something about walking away from an event and feeling energized. I know at my core, I am an extrovert. I am the girl who does actually enjoy often being in the office, because I love that buzz that you get from being those places. That said, she's a new mom at home. This is the season we're in, but that, that energy when you're out at a conference and you leave and you walk away thinking like, wow, I can do this. I have these connections. These are the people. It's that re-energize. And I think we need that a lot this year. You need to come together when the sentiment is working twice as hard for half the business. You needed to be reminded of, like, out of the daily, the daily go of that refresh. And I think it's so important also just for mental health, well-being, for you and your career, for longevity, crafting something that's strategic. And so that is a great feedback that I got that kind of echoes what you're saying, is go to these events because you want to walk away with a renewed pep in your step.
And that's part of it, because there's tons of information out there. We have great information on our site all the time. We try to provide all this way. What we're trying to do in events is something that only happens when we're all together. And so that is a really different idea. It is information, it is all these things, but it's something different, a certain synergy that happens when we're together. And I feel like we've gotten better and better at it every year. We're like, this is awesome. And so I have yet to talk to someone who went last year that did not have a smile on their face when they were telling me about it. And they had some hilarious story about what happened. And they also met people that they wouldn't have met otherwise. So that's what we're in the business of. And Brena, you're our perfect person to do this. If we had the title of Chief Fun Officer, it would be you. We don't have that title, but community, the HW Plus, all of that, it's all there.
I'm here to craft core memories in the words of, I think, Inside Out. Core memory, core memories for everybody. And also just knowledge building. That's craft. I would highly recommend everyone to just keep going back to housingwire.com. Something that I think I want to make sure to touch on before we wrap up is what Sarah talked about, the Women of Influence section that we have in the event. The way this agenda is built and what I wanted to craft in the lineup is, in the past we've had, Marketing Leader Success Summit, the Women of Influence Forum, kind of like ahead of the event and separate in a way. Those discussions are more important than ever for everybody into the Be the Room source. So if you hear us talking about Women of Influence or marketing leaders, those are just sections within the main agenda. So the day kicks off, the event kicks off with Logan Motoshami giving his data unpacking from last year. Then it leads into Mike Simonson, the president of Altos. I love his title, Less Vibes, More Data, no more feelings like the industry is doing this. Let's actually, figure out the numbers behind it. And then going into that, the rest of, the sessions that leads into the marketing leaders section. The people that we have speaking there are giving information that anyone can use in the room. So stay in the room, listen to these tips on how marketing is more important. Oftentimes marketing is right alongside with strategy in these businesses on how they're planning. That's what we kept in mind as we put it into the main section. And then Women of Influence section, I think it's, to me, our secret sauce, our special thing is the fact that I want everyone in that room, men, women, everybody, because that's what happens when you create change. I've had some good conversations from people of, yes, the women that are being interviewed are talking about, work-life balance doesn't exist. It's work-life harmony. And that's something that we all face, or we have someone on our team who faces. And if we actually want to create change, everyone needs to be in that discussion and listening in on. And so I'd say that's a huge, huge thing I want to flag with, even between marketing leaders, but also the Women of Influence section, is that these are just parts of the main agenda. We don't have tracks that we want everyone to be sitting in on.
I love that. And we know that a lot of lenders have pared back their marketing departments this year. And so I think that everybody in some ways in a mortgage company is a marketer. Maybe not if you're an underwriter, maybe if you're not in the back office. Otherwise, marketing is so key to everything in our industry. And so I love that. And Brena, thanks so much for being on. Of course, I love having you on. Hope to see everyone that's listening at either Gathering of Eagles for real estate or HousingWire Annual for mortgage. We love meeting you guys. Come up and tell us that you listen, and we can't wait to meet you. Thanks so much, Brena.
It was a pleasure being here. Thanks, Sarah. See you in a week.